We are. We're recording. Yay! We're live. Hi, everybody. It's Michelle Bone Woods, the owner of National Bearded Empress Pageantry System, and I'm here with 258 Interpreting Services LLC, Ashley and Corey. How are you guys doing today?
Great. Thank you. Thank you for having us.
Oh, I'm so grateful. Ashley and Corey own 258 Interpreting LLC. They are American Sign Language interpreters, and they will be interpreting the National Bearded Empress Pageant on March 30th and 31st at Parliament House, Orlando. So we're super excited to have you guys on board to make sure that we're a very inclusive pageant. And thank you so much for being a part of all of it and all that you do.
Thank you.
So awesome. I wanted to talk to you guys about a few things. What inspired each of you to become American Sign Language interpreters?
Well, for me, the deaf community did. I started taking classes in American Sign Language when I was in high school, and thought that it would be a great skill to keep for whatever career I went into. But as I was going through college, realized that the career I had chosen wasn't really the best fit for me. And I kept blowing off certain responsibilities for that major, instead to go to deaf events and to work on my sign language a little bit more. And the more that I got involved with the community and met, different deaf people, it really became no question for what I wanted to do. I met a couple of great deaf individuals who really kind of encouraged me and convinced me to switch my major.
That's awesome. How many years of study is required to become an American Sign Language interpreter?
Well, I can let Corey answer for himself too, for what inspired him to become an interpreter, because I think it's a little bit different from me.
Okay, that's perfect.
Yeah, so, well, with the world of sign language and the deaf community, they both just kind of fell into my lap. Originally, I was an English major wanting to become a book editor. I wasn't really enjoying my major, and I actually hated editing classes. So I really didn't know what to do with my life. I had a friend that was taking ASL classes, and she told me it was a super fun language to learn, and I thought, why not? I have nothing else to lose because I don't know what I'm doing with my life. And I thought it could be a cool skill to have in my pocket. Before taking that class, I had no pre-knowledge of the language or what even an interpreter was. But while I was taking the first ASL class, I completely fell in love with the history, the culture, and just the language in itself. It didn't take long before I was in my admissions office changing my major into sign language interpretation.
That's really amazing. So you just got inspired.
Right.
So how many years of study is required to become an American Sign Language interpreter?
Well, it's different for every state. So while there is a national exam you can take to become nationally certified, each state has their own rules, their own policies around sign language interpreters. For the state of Florida specifically, there aren't really any requirements. So we have a lot of homegrown interpreters in this state, those who learned from family or friends, being around the community, or going to church. We've got several churches in the area that offer classes. But then if you do want to get a more formal education, then there are associate programs and bachelor programs. You can even go on to a master's or a PhD in interpreting.
Oh, it's fascinating. I didn't realize that it was so difficult, to have like the board certifications. Like each state doesn't have a staple set standard. That's interesting.
Yes.
What are some of the most challenging parts of being an interpreter?
Most of the challenges that we face as interpreters are from the ignorance about what we actually do in our profession. most people mistake us as family members or helpers or even friends. Um, Often we're not even viewed as professionals providing a service to the community. And because of these misunderstandings, it can cause a simple doctor's appointment to become much more complicated and more drawn out than that's even necessary. I do feel like this is getting a little better due to the media attention that the deaf and interpreting communities have been receiving recently. However, it's still our as interpreters' responsibility to continue to educate others in how to interact with interpreters and even the deaf community. If this is done professionally and appropriately, I believe we can get to a place of understanding and acceptance. We also have to be, you know, another challenge that us interpreters have to face is being witness to such personal and devastating situations that these deaf individuals have to go through. And if an interpreter is, empathic or sensitive to those kind of situations, it makes it really hard to go home and deal with it and to process. So sometimes, the vicarious trauma is it seriously affects some of us. So it's something that not a lot of people have to think about. They think that we're just there for the language, which we are, but we still have to experience those traumatic events and still be a part of them without trying to get too much involved into them.
That's fascinating because you're still part of the human experience. So you're right there for it when they need privacy, and it's not a lot, they're not having that because you're also there and trying to convey something. So that's really, really intense.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Well, my hat's off to both of you for that. There's joys and sorrows in life, but to have it, what you someone would consider to be a stranger there for that, I mean, wow, it's really intense. Um, in recent decades, American Sign Language interpreters have been taking stage at major concert venues for a wide range of music. Does this make you feel less empowered in your career path? Or make you feel more empowered in your career path, excuse me. Not less,
um,
more.
right. I would say yes, to a certain degree. A lot of people put their focus on the interpreter in those venues. And so you see, these viral videos that go out fairly often with comments like, oh, the interpreter stole the show, or things like that. And that really kind of detracts from why we're there. The point of us being there is to provide access. And so I think it's great that, interpreters are getting the attention because it shows other people who maybe aren't familiar with the idea of deaf people going to things like concerts or shows or festivals. It really helps open the door to have that conversation because, deaf people are just like anybody else. They want to be involved in things. They want to go and interact in the community. They want to go to concerts. Deaf people like music. I know that's surprising for a lot of people, but it's just something that, it's a way to provide access for them to be a part of something just like anybody else would. So I think it really is empowering to see how much attention sign language is getting in those types of venues because it helps us have that conversation with potential contracts. Explaining why, it would benefit them, not only their deaf consumers, but it benefit them to have us for their shows to open up ticket sales and widen their target audience to bring in more people.
I just want to make sure he gets enough time to finish up, so everybody gets that. So having that, it's just about access. Access is imperative, and inclusion. So emerging into the culture that everyone just wants to be a part of.
Exactly.
Okay. And the hearing impaired community wants to be a part of that.
Right.
Absolutely, as they should be. I think that we take things for granted when we don't have that, have a sensory deprivation, something of that nature, that we're not understanding what someone else is experiencing, and to not be included. And especially for the gay community with National Bearded Empress, having a company such as 258 Interpreting Services, LLC, you guys coming out to do this is really allowing access where there hasn't been much access.
Right.
So thank you for that. That's wonderful.
Thank you for allowing us to be a part of it and to provide that access.
Yeah, we want everybody to feel welcome. It's for everybody, everyone included, no matter what. What kind of venues or atmospheres, on top of that, in addition to that, what kind of venues or atmospheres do you provide your services in?
Well, we provide our services wherever they're needed, honestly. If there's some sort of communication required with a deaf person to a hearing person, us as interpreters, we're there. I mean, you name it: schools, college classrooms, job interviews, work meetings, doctor's offices, dentists, therapy sessions, mental health facilities, courtrooms, mediations, cruise ships, conferences, and of course, special shows like this one. There are many more venues that I can't even, mention because the list is endless. But anytime you're in a situation as a hearing person where you're receiving a service and communicating with a professional, a deaf person would need an interpreter in that same situation. With that said, right now, 258 interpreting services, our focus right now is to go beyond the everyday appointments and situations and provide access for events that aren't usually covered or thought about. Example, just like the pageant that you guys are throwing. We're so excited to be a part of that because I don't know of a lot of other shows that Parliament House has provided the access that we plan on providing for your pageant.
We're so grateful for that, having the ability for communication. So anytime that communication is going on, a interpreter should be there. And I think that the hearing community takes that for granted in understanding. So
yes,
but thank you so much for saying that, and that's great. You guys are opening my eyes, and I'm hoping that this is going to open the eyes of all the viewers and the followers of Miss National Empress, and especially the LGBT community. So this is great, and once again, thank you. As we're going forward, I'm learning, and I'm hoping everyone else is learning too. Do you find that there are significant challenges or injustices that the hearing impaired community continue to deal with?
Yes, so many. So we see, fairly regularly quite a few challenges and injustices that deaf individuals are faced with. And really, we're only seeing a glimpse. It goes so much deeper than what we even witness. Many deaf individuals are the only deaf person in their family. So they grow up with a family that oftentimes doesn't learn sign language. So you already have the factor of language deprivation. And then you think about their actual interactions with their family members. Sometimes people are isolated because their family doesn't know what to do with them, so to speak. And so you have limited interactions with your own family members, limited conversations with your own family members. And then you go out into a society that's not built for really recognizing differences. And many deaf people have to fight for appropriate accommodations in everyday things such as what Corey mentioned, doctor's offices or dental appointments or job interviews or anything that, we can last minute make an appointment for or just walk in for. There's a lot of planning that's involved for deaf people to be able to have even close to a similar service or level of service of what we get. And then, it can escalate from there too with simple run-ins with the police. If you get pulled over for speeding or taillight out or running a stop sign or whatever, that can become disastrous with a lack of awareness on, police officers' parts, which there's education out there. It's just, it doesn't reach everybody, unfortunately. So you can see these very simple encounters go awry simply from a deaf person trying to express the fact that they are deaf and that they need a pen and paper to write back and forth, or, if they feel concerned, they want an interpreter at the scene. We've seen where some officers have misinterpreted their gestures and their signing as aggressive or threatening hand flailing, which has sometimes led to them getting placed or getting handcuffed and then placed in the back of their cruiser until they can figure out what to do. And it is a policy to have a certified interpreter on scene if you're reading Miranda rights, if an arrest is actually being made. And that oftentimes goes ignored. So you have somebody who's been handcuffed and they don't know the reason why. And now being handcuffed, oftentimes behind the back, you've taken away their only access to communication, which is their hands. And so that can be really, really traumatic and devastating for somebody who did absolutely nothing wrong, or, did a simple thing wrong, like had a taillight out or something like that. And that's honestly like best case scenario for a situation going awry. We've even seen where deaf individuals were killed by police because they didn't follow instructions when they simply just couldn't hear the instructions or didn't understand the instructions from the officer. So their actions were, again, misinterpreted or misunderstood. So really just there's so many challenges and so many injustices that the deaf community faces on a day-to-day basis that we often don't even think of in our own lives. So then when you take away, or not take away, but when you move on from just emergency situations or everyday life, then settings such as concerts and theater and, the pageant that we'll be interpreting for you all, that's something that can sometimes seem out of the question and then further isolates an already marginalized group. So that's really what we're trying to focus on, because we do see so many challenges and really want to broaden other people's eyes to, including deaf people in things that they're already doing, and really just kind of opening others' eyes to that.
There's the fact that you brought that up as a situation, just bringing it up, it's very minor. Like this just happens. It happens much worse. This is just a blip of what goes on. So the fact that this is going on, we need to make people aware that it's not just, oh, I'm living my life, I'm going to concerts, I'm going to things. No, I'm dealing with real life issues that can be where someone like myself that's hearing, or the two of you, that we can speak to an officer, turns into something absolutely catastrophic. And we take for granted how our communication that's allowed to us, and that it could go awry so quickly.
Right. And we get so much from communicating, and especially being involved in community events and things like, National Bearded Empress. I mean, we utilize these platforms for cultural reasons. Like the LGBT has a culture and a sense of belonging, and deaf individuals want to be a part of that as well. They're just like anybody else. So they need that interaction. They need that sense of belonging as much as the next person. And like I mentioned, we only see a very small portion of the deaf experience, and we don't experience it firsthand. We only see as outsiders. So the best way to really start to understand is just to interact with deaf people too. I mean, they're the best storytellers. They're the only ones who can really tell their stories. So
thank you so much for that information. I hope that people's eyes are open to this as well, and that as we continue, we're being educated more and more. So, this has been an eye-opening experience thus far. I'm just kind of having a hard time with that, but it is the reality. And I think that the whole community, not just the LGBT community, but the whole community as a whole needs to understand that this is very severe, extremely severe. Wow. Um, what is something that you want to educate the hearing typical community in regards to the hearing impaired and American Sign Language?
Well, I kind of want to start with that colorful word that we keep hearing, which is hearing impaired. Many hearing people think that they're being politically correct and polite, and so therefore it's not their fault per se. They kind of feel like they're doing the right thing by saying the phrase hearing impaired. But in actuality, in the deaf community, saying deaf and hard of hearing or person with hearing loss is the appropriate terminology, and hearing impaired is actually quite offensive for them.
Wow.
For them, the word impaired has a negative connotation to where it means they. It's just the word impaired is negative, and it's a very a medical term. As to deaf and hard of hearing, those words have a culture that's tied to them. And the deaf community is a very cultural community. They have their own language, they have their own um, just society. So that's just one thing. And again, it's not to anyone's fault. I feel like that has been embedded to people who aren't involved or tied to the deaf community. I feel like a lot of people think that hearing impaired is the actual politically correct terminology, but in actuality, it isn't. So I would like to educate a lot of people on that. That the preferred terminology is deaf, hard of hearing, or person with hearing loss. Um, Another thing that we would like to get out into the hearing community is that I don't want them to be nervous around deaf people. They don't bite. They're actually a beautiful and friendly community of people. They love to interact with hearing people just as much as they do with deaf. They like to be involved with everything that hearing people are involved with. They like to feel that belonging, that they're not, you know, ostracized and isolated. They just want to belong with just the normal society of people. And of course, Ashley and I on 258 Interpreting Services, we want to spotlight on the importance of accessibility. Deaf people need that equal access. You know, sometimes an interpreter like Ashley and I, we're just the tip of the iceberg. Sometimes there's additional accommodations that need to be, fulfilled, and they need them. They don't request them out of, it's a necessity. They don't request them just because. They want to be involved fully. They want to be, especially when you say the LGBTQ plus community, they want to be involved with all the situations and all the events and all of the fundraisers, and just as much as we do, especially in Orlando. Orlando has a huge LGBTQ plus deaf community. And they love coming to events. They love drag shows. They love being involved in their own community. So we can simply let them be involved if we just provide those accommodations they request. They really don't ask for that much, so I don't see why we can't provide it and let them be a part of our community.
Very well said. It shouldn't even be a request. It should be mandatory for all people, for communication, so everyone feels included. But it begins and ends with us, right? So we're starting it, and 258 Interpreting Services is definitely starting it. So thank you so much for doing that. You guys are amazing. You guys are rock stars. Are you guys excited for the Miss National Bearded Empress pageant on March 30th and 31st at the illustrious, world famous Parliament House Resort?
Of course. Yes, duh. Well, that's why we're doing it.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit more about your business, guys, and like your contact information and everything.
So Corey and I are just starting out. We're still getting everything in place. So we're really excited that National Bearded Empress will be probably our first major gig as a company. But we do have a phone number if anybody wants to start setting up gigs with us. Our number is 407 801 0851. And then in addition, you can feel free to email us at 258interpretingllc@gmail.com. And we'll have more announcements as time goes on once we get everything, a website and social media more established. We'll start to get the word out there, but we're definitely excited that we can, be a part of National Bearded Empress and that, you guys are kind of helping us jump off as a company.
Well, for me, more than anything, you guys are helping us give true access to people that deserve access. And thank you for more than just educating me tonight on proper terminology, but also educating me on, and the rest of the viewers, about how important it is for the deaf community to have their spaces and to feel completely included too. So.
Absolutely.
You guys are amazing, and thank you so much. Thank you for your time tonight. I really, really appreciate it, and I can't wait. We're gonna have an amazing time.
Yes, I think we're excited as well.
Yes, definitely.
All right, guys. Well, thanks everybody for watching. If you guys have any questions or concerns, you could definitely reach out to Corey and Ashley at 258interpretingllc@gmail.com, and their telephone number is 407-801-0851. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
You're
Bye-bye.
welcome so much. Bye-bye.